Welcome back to Masonry Studio. I'm David Abrams, founder and CEO of Masonry. As a commercial real estate broker, we're always dealing with landlords and tenants, and each of those are dealing with their own sets of code violations, issues that slow down our deal making. Today I have the pleasure to sit next to my friend Ari Horn, founder and CEO of BCompliant.
Thanks, David. It's awesome to be here.
So we actually went to the same high school, MTA,
Yeah.
and then the same college, Yeshiva University. Tell me about your experience.
So it was great. I loved it there. I actually extended that. I went to Cardozo for law school. So I've been in that system for a long time, and I'm very happy I went there. I think I got a tremendous amount out of there. When I was in YU, my parents kind of said, "You're going to law school." And I didn't know how to take that. And I was like, okay, you know what? I guess I might as well try it. I went to law school, and my experience there was phenomenal. I'm so happy I went to Cardozo. I think it really gave me the opportunity to learn what I wanted to learn instead of being forced to take these classes that I had nothing, it didn't resonate with me. So I went to law school. I knew I didn't want to practice law, so I really went just for the knowledge. And I was able to take real estate transaction, all these real estate tax classes that really helped me on a day-to-day basis, whether it's on the real estate side or the compliance side. I use it every day, and being able to read contracts and know what the lawyers are talking about, it was a phenomenal experience.
Before we get into BCompliant, I want to understand what drives you. Are you an early riser?
So by default I am. I used to be an early riser every morning, and now after a long day, I gotta go play hockey, get on the ice, and get everything out. But I have 3 kids. Oldest just turned 5, so regardless, they wake me up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. So really by default I am.
You have 3 kids under 5 at home. COVID hits. Where was your head at? What were you working on at that point?
So when COVID really hit in March 2020, that's when we were supposed to launch. And it really was a setback for us because we spent about a year and a half developing and putting a lot of money into the software. And there was no construction, nothing going on. So I kind of thought, we have to pivot some way, but in what way do we pivot? And we have to find something that, yes, people could use a construction management platform and it's super helpful, but there's still something, we have to create something that people need. So the whole real estate industry, I think, is one of the last industries that's been innovating to prop tech, and I think there's a lot of room to grow and a lot of things. And you can see now a lot of VCs are pouring a lot of money into prop tech. I took my experience in VC, I took my experience in law, and I took my experience in real estate, and I try to really bridge that gap with compliance. So compliance, although it has to do with everything, I think that for real estate, compliance ties all those 3 things into one. So that's kind of how BCompliant started. We really started as a software company, developing it for our own needs and to really monitor and be on top of all our violations in New York City. And a lot of people just kept on saying, I would show it to people and say, wow, that's awesome. But hey, it would be cool if the software could do this. It would be cool if the software, had this feature. And my response always was, all right, awesome, I'm gonna add that. I think that's what really sets us apart from all our competitors, is that right now our software is not gonna be what it will be in 6 months, and it's not what it was 6 months ago, because we're constantly adapting, constantly adding new features based on client feedback. I think the biggest part of BCompliant is not created by us, it's created by our clients. The clients always have feedback, and we're constantly innovating to meet that goal.
Before we move on, how'd you come up with the name BCompliant?
So we really just originally started in a different name. It's called CRE Violations, and we kind of felt, we need something more catchy. So BCompliant, we just took the building for buildings compliance, and also, the goal was for everyone to be compliant in the industry. So that's kind of how we created that name.
Very cool. Walk me through the different aspects of the business. So it is a service, it is a technology.
Yeah, so we're really technology focused. We originally started as a software. So we started as a software, and we're adapting, and really growing based on clients' feedback. And the next thing we brought in was a violations team. So we hired a whole violations team in-house to actually go and fight those violations if you get those violations. And from there, we added something called third-party compliance. And I think that's what really sets us apart and makes us unique from everyone else. Is we offer 3 services. We offer the monitoring, we offer the fight the violations, we also offer the back office compliance. With the back office compliance, we really do everything for you from A to Z. We schedule all your inspections, make sure everything is getting taken care of so you don't have additional fines, and we take the load off of the property managers. I really tell everyone, we do everything compliance, we just don't deal with tenants. That's your problem. But our goal really is that instead of having to hire someone in-house for your compliance, we'll either supplement that person so you don't have to hire an additional person, or we will take that over completely and we'll be on top of everything and make sure that everything is up to date.
You're based in New York right now. You're very active in New York. Is this something that can be copied and pasted to other cities?
Definitely. So right now our work order system can really be used anywhere, and it's a fantastic work order system, web-based, mobile-based, everything integrates. But in terms of the real estate and compliance, I think there's no city like New York City. There are other cities that are catching on, and our goal is to get there and to really take over that market and be the forefront in that market.
You mentioned the tool, so you developed it.
Yeah, so we hired software developers when we were originally starting. Funny story, we actually hired a developer and we spent a lot of time, and after a couple of days he left and we were scrambling to find someone else, and it was a great blessing. Our software developers now are fantastic and they're really dedicated to be compliant. I think that's the whole thing about Be Compliant. Everyone who works there wants to be there, enjoys being there. We all work together and we all have this common goal of really just being the best and having the best software, having the best service, having the best everything. And we're always striving for that. I mean, to be honest, it's challenging because we're a new company coming into market now, and people are comfortable with these other companies that they've been using for a while. So someone says, why would I switch to you? Yes, you're cheaper. Okay, we're cheaper. But I tell everyone, yes, our fees are a little cheaper, but that's not where we're going to save you money. We're really going to save you money on how we fight the violations and the outcomes that come from it. So we have a dismissal rate on violations that's significantly higher than industry. So what we do is people will come and they'll give us some violations, we'll handle them, and then they'll fall in love. And that's what's been happening. Everyone just keeps on coming back. And really, we haven't done so much marketing. Everything has really been through word of mouth. And the success rate and the growth that we've had has been all organic, and it's just been phenomenal, adding hundreds and hundreds of buildings every week. So for retail, I think it's even more important because you have these big box retailers that are nationwide, and there's different codes and regulations, especially here in New York City, and they're not equipped and they don't know how to necessarily deal with them, and that's kind of where we come in, and we basically take over the whole back office, make sure they're up to code, inspections, everything like that, and make sure they're not getting those violations, because retail, restaurants, they could get hit bad from violations, and we're really there to help ease that burden.
You know, it's interesting. I'd say it's in every single LOI with where I'm representing a tenant, we ask the landlord, you must deliver the space free of any violations. We can't be held up in the permit process. We can't be held up with a fully built store and we can't open because you have an existing violation. And it's not every day, but I've definitely gotten pushback where landlords just say, I've been dealing it for a while, don't worry, I'll clear it up by the time we get the deal done. And I've lost a couple of deals because they couldn't clear the violation. It just seems like we, the tenant, should say to the landlord, you need to work with Be Compliant or we can't sign this lease.
Correct. So I think the big difference between us is when you give us a violation, we're trying to get rid of it. We're trying to get it dismissed. We won't just take a settlement. We'll really go to bat and fight for you for it, but we're not going to just adjourn it and adjourn it and adjourn it. We handle it and try to get it dismissed right away. We try to take care of everything right away. And I think that's the biggest thing with landlords is that they're, at this point, because revenue growth in New York City is limited. You can't raise rents on tenants or anything like that. So all landlords are going back and saying, how could I cut my costs? And that's kind of where we come in, because we help people cut their costs drastically, and we save them tons of money on the front end as well as the back end.
Tell me some of the challenges that you're facing.
I think the biggest challenge is getting people to understand that you have to be proactive instead of reactive. By being reactive, you're going to end up paying significantly more in fines to clear everything up. You have to refi or sign the building or anything like that. So what we do is we offer this third-party compliance, and well, basically, you're going to pay up front for the year, and we manage that whole process for you. So it's hard to get landlords to understand that, okay, I have to come up with money now up front, but if you look at the course of the year and you look back at the year, you're going to end up saving tremendous amount of money because you're not going to get those violations, because we're going to be on top of it and make sure you don't get those violations, and everything is up to code.
Are you brought into a deal while someone's in contract to purchase?
Yeah, so that happens. People are trying to sell, people are trying to refi, and what usually happens is people come to us at the last minute and say, oh, it's an emergency, I need this. And yes, we're always there to help, but Imagine how seamless the whole process would be if you didn't have to do that. If you were on top of everything and you had a back office compliance, and yes, there are smaller companies that don't have that compliance person in-house, and that's where we come in and we facilitate that whole process and make sure everything is up to code.
Talking about the different service lines, so you mentioned the three. Is there anything in development today?
So we're constantly developing new things, and that's, it also goes into our clients and what they want and their needs. So that's the kind of the reason how we're a little different than everyone else, is we're constantly developing and constantly adding new things. To give an example, someone called me last week and said, hey, I love it if the software could do this. And they wanted a new feature. So what I do is I call 10 other people and I say, hey, would this be good? Not almost always. If 9 out of 10 people or 10 out of people say yes, I develop that software. It's happened once where one person wanted something specific and no one else. I ended up calling 10 people, they said no. I called another 10 people, they said no. So I went back and said, you know what, it's great and I wish I could do it, but it doesn't make sense. And they said, yeah, I totally understand, it's for our specific need. But in general, if someone says, hey, I want something, I'll call 10 people, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 always say yes, and that's how we grow and develop.
And so your current setup, you have the relationships in the DOB and various city offices?
Correct. There's a bunch of different agencies. We have relationships in all of them, and that's why we're really able to make ourselves a little unique and we're a little different, and that goes back to our dismissal rate. Our dismissal rate is significantly higher than the industry, and that's because we know how to handle the cases. And our goal is not just to churn out violations and get things, adjourned and get things, settlements. Our goal is to get you the best possible outcome, and if we have to spend extra time on it, we will, because our goal is, it helps the clients and it helps us also. Our goal is to really get you the best outcome possible.
Are you seeing a consistency among your clients that the same types of violations appear across the board?
Yeah, so the way New York City works is they have like something they're focused on. So if they're focused on lead and mold, they'll come out lead and mold violations. They'll give, they'll focus on that. So when we do see that, we do see, now they came out with this new thing that's XRF scanners. So every apartment has to be scanned. So what we do is we work with different vendors to go out and make sure those scans are done and report back to the client.
What is an XRF scan?
An XRF scan is you have like a little gun and it checks for lead.
You mentioned being proactive.
Yes.
And you're going after building owners and tenants operating throughout the country. So walk me through that. What's the approach? What's the conversation like with a tenant?
This conversation with tenants, a lot of tenants don't understand that, especially if they're new to New York or they've been here and they only have a few stores, they don't really understand the need yet, and they'll get violations, and people kind of build that into their cost. It's an expense now. Yes, you're going to get this amount of violations a year, but imagine you didn't have to do that. You could cut back on costs, especially rents are high. It's hard to make more money in New York City. A lot of stores are closing, especially retail. You see tons of vacancies. How do you cut back on costs? And we're the answer, right? Because if you didn't have to budget that amount for violations, or even the surprise violations that come on, your whole process, your expenses are going to come down significantly, and that really could be a make it or break it.
Is there any overlap from existing buildings to new construction? Are you able to provide value to a developer that has a plot of land and be with them from day one as they're going through the zoning, as they're going through city planning?
Yeah, because a lot of times when you're doing construction, especially in construction, if you get a stop work order, you need to know that minute that you get a stop work order, because if the city comes down and you're still working, you're in big trouble. So what we do is our software is it really is #1 software out there, and what it does is it lets you know you'll get either an email or you get a push notification on your phone that you got a stop work order on this property and you have to stop.
What's the profile of the operator, be it building owner or tenant, that you're seeing to be getting the most amount of violations?
So it's really everyone. I think the biggest challenge is everyone else who's not a landlord. So if you're a landlord and you own and operate the building, you're going to understand the need for us versus a management company where they're managing other people's buildings, because they kind of build that into their management fees. But the owners, it's their buildings. They don't want violations on their buildings, and they don't want to have to pay for the violations on the buildings. So that's a big part for us.
Walk me through the user experience.
So our software is super user friendly. I mean, we give demos. We could give someone a demo 5 times, but we don't need to with our software, because our software is very simple. We created it. It's very user friendly, but it also has the robust system, and it's everything you need in the system. So if I give you a login, you log in, you'll be able to figure it out yourself. But if you need help, we're always there. I think something about us is our customer service is number one. So whether it's you want to message us through the platform, we'll respond right away. Emails will respond, or pick up the phone, call us, we'll always respond. And that's something that's a little different versus email and calling with other people, is we try to streamline everything through our platform. So everything going back, if you need to send us documents, certificate of corrections, everything goes through our platform, and this way everything's tracked in one place, and you can see the progress of violation from start to finish through the platform.
Is this web-based or mobile-based as well?
So it's actually both. So what we have is everything's stored in the cloud as well. So we have a web-based version and a mobile-based version that interacts seamlessly, and they're identical systems, and everything integrates.
Is there the possibility for somebody to walk around their building, snap a picture, there's a crack in the wall, this is what the violation was in reference to, they upload the image, and now it's...
Correct, yeah, so that's our work order system. So with our software, you could create a work order off a violation, so you get a violation, now you click create work order, and you get to assign that to somebody. We also developed a separate work order system in our software that, just to give you an example, a tenant calls the management company and says, hey, my sink's broken, right? So the manager in the office is going to create a work order and assign it to the super. The super is going to go down to the apartment. He's either going to have his tablet, his mobile phone. He's going to go in. He's going to take a picture of it before, fix it, take a picture of it after, get the tenant to sign on the tablet that it was completed, and then that gets uploaded as a document. It gets back to the property manager, know it was completed, and now that's stored in the cloud, and you have that forever. So if they ever come back to you and say, hey, you never did the work or anything like that, you have proof that it was done.
You mentioned assigning. Is that you have someone, a specific individual that is now responsible for that relationship? Is it someone that the landlord is always speaking to the same person on your team? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's also another reason how we're a little unique is our clients, they have their designated people. So you're going to have your one, maybe sometimes two people that you talk to. If they need something from our different departments in our company, they're going to go out and get that. You don't want to talk to 500 people and having to reintroduce the issues. You have a one point person, and that's it.
But in that communication aspect of the tool, be it mobile or online, you can message the entire team.
You can message us directly, you can message your whole team. We're very customizable with notes as well. You can do notes, documents, share it with everyone. You want it just yourself. You could send documents back and forth to us through the platform.
So this really came to life during COVID. The last few years have moved at 1,000,000 miles an hour. There's been so many changes. Where do you see things in the future? How do you see this evolving?
So codes and regulations are always coming out everywhere, especially for real estate. And there's new codes coming out, and our goal is to really let you know when there's a new code or new regulation coming out, because especially as a small landlord, you're not going to know when these new things come out. But by using us, we're basically telling you, hey, this is a new thing that needs to be done every couple of years or whatever it is, and we stay on top of that, and we're your expert back office. And you have that opportunity to have that service and have that in-house person without having to pay the salary of someone being full-time in-house.
I did a recent interview with the CEO of Virtual Space. They are the masters of Matterport. And one of the things he mentioned was this idea of placing QR codes in spaces, and you have an entire visual of a building. Are you taking those components and building them in at all?
So there's certain components. We have a whole compliance feature on our dashboard that you're able to track all. You have to have your boilers, elevators, backflow, all these different registrations. So some data that the city provides we pull automatically, and the other things we allow you the opportunity to track it yourself. So let's say your backflow, right? You schedule that. What you're able to do is log on to our platform, put in when the inspection was, and then it will automatically put in the next inspection date, and you're going to get reminders of when it needs to be done. With the third-party compliance, we're going to schedule that and make sure that gets done for you.
We covered PropTech, we covered VC world. Tell me, what is the most rewarding aspect to you in this whole thing?
I mean, the best feeling I definitely get is after we go to meet with a client, and this has happened numerous times, is we show them our software, show them everything we have, and they're just floored. They've never experienced anything like this in the industry, in the PropTech industry, and in the compliance industry, and they basically ask us to invest. They want to be an investor, and there's no better feeling than having someone asks you that question, because that means you're clearly doing something right and they want to be part of that journey. And I think that's the best feeling that anybody could get, and any founder or any CEO could get in any company.
I'm constantly dealing with landlords, with tenants. What is the best advice you could share with them?
I think the best advice I could really share is to be proactive and not reactive. Because if you're just going to be reactive, you're going to end up spending much more time, aggravation, and money on this, when you could just be proactive. And yeah, you're paying a little up front, but over the course of the year, you're going to be saving a tremendous amount of money. And if money's not even an issue, the headache, the hassle of going into this, you won't have that.
I like that. I'm going to ask the same question, but for a different group. I'm often talking to college students in college, just graduated college, looking at their future. What's a piece of advice you could share with someone like that?
You're going to fail. Originally, we had another company we're working on, and like I told you before, with the start of COVID, there's no need for it anymore, and it shut down for a year and a half, and we're going to bring it back, but I needed to figure out what could I do now, and could I just stop, or could I create something new? And we kind of pivoted to the BCompliant and the whole violations, because that's something you need regardless of if you're doing construction now, you're not doing construction now. It's like a constant thing. So if something comes up and something shuts down, it was a huge disappointment when that happened, but we kind of say, okay, this has happened, now what, right? Don't delve on the past. Say, okay, how could I change this for the future, and pivot and see where you could grow and constantly push. And yes, some days are great, and some days when you run a business are not so great, but just strive forward and keep on pushing.
You mentioned what now. My mentor likes to say, what's next?
So for us, what's next is we're always innovating and growing. And I guess, same for you is what next for you, right? You started here, now you're over here, and I see you're constantly growing. And this platform that you created, Masonry Studios, it is awesome for us because we get to share with everyone else and all these other companies that are going there. And really mad props. It's great for you, and it's great for your clients, and it's great for everyone, because this way you're bringing those companies that are new to industries and are really being the forefront, taking over and introducing it to everyone. And we really appreciate it. Very happy to be here, and thanks so much.